Well, I'm gonna do a response to this video since it was quite clearly aimed at me, which is quite ironic considering you spent the bulk of this video saying how not to accuse people and that it's a waste of time. But here you are doing that exact thing, and a lot of the comments and such that I've seen from you recently are just that, so I wonder why you continue to go around in circles. But I'm going to do a response to this video because I do actually care about helping you out. Unlike Mac, who doesn't give a damn about any of you and just sees you as numbers. And it's not so much about what he says, but about all of your behaviour. All your videos ever since I've called you out last month or whenever it was. Your videos since have all been very desperate. You're desperately seeking validation from Mac, and it's easy to see. Because I read the comments that you put on his channel, and I know that most of them are backhanded comments aimed at me because I had the audacity to have a difference of opinion. Oh, but that's not allowed. And yet nothing is opinion, and yet it's all opinion. No, I don't really know when it comes to the religion that you follow, and it is a religion. Okay. Where is it? The validation that you will seek. The only reason Mac does anything, he doesn't care about any of you. He just, for one, he likes the sound of his own voice. And two, he thinks it's funny to lie to you. And he's said this in so many of his videos. It's astonishing to me that you don't get it. You're trapped in this spiritual naivety where you can't see these snakes. So the only reason he does it is for this ingratiating behaviour. So thank you, Mac, for showing me the duality and symmetry. I've been watching 5 years, took me 5 years, and I laugh my ass off, so it's, you have to come to Mac and you have to prostrate yourself to him. You have to desecrate yourself, and then he'll give you a little smile. I'm sure he was expecting a bit more than just a smile after this faithful display of prostration, but that's all you get. And then it's, oh, I'll make another attempt at seeking validation, and that was just ignored. But then all the other guys have to come in and they have to get in on that validation. And Joseph Seaver is one of the worst. This comment is written as though it's in response to this guy, but it's not. This comment was written for the attention of Mac, because he was seeking validation. He didn't get it, but he'll continue. Well, actually, no, sorry, he got this. This is his newest thing, and he can't be bothered to reply to you. He just does this. And this is the little cookie. This is the little cream cracker that you get. The little high of validation. 5 years is an accomplishment. Most won't ever get it, and for some it takes lifetime. So it's like we're all part of a crowd here, and congrats, we've jumped you in to our gang. But what none of you realise is that it's this guy is on his own, and the rest of you are just pawns. You're just numbers to him. This is all he cares about. And to tell you the truth, all of the men on his channel, you're all obsolete, you're all irrelevant. The only reason he does any of it is this. So this is his newest bimbo that comes to his channel, It used to be Jane, but Jane's been relegated ever since Mystic Mrs. came around. And it's, you know, all this stuff that you guys do, like Jack Dorsey. You know, you take words and you try to extract the phonetics out of them and create new words. But I'll just tell you now. Okay, it's babble. Okay, this is babble, and I know for a fact that Mac has the same stance on this. He thinks that this is babble, and it's just nothing. You're just babbling. Okay, you're just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. But he'll give you a little heart, even though he hates this, because he just wants ingratiation. That's all it is. You know, the men on his channel are irrelevant. This is the only purpose. You know, we talk all this crap about raising women up, but he's like a lech. You know, the ones who talk the most crap about women and praising them and putting them on a pedestal are the worst lechers and the worst voyeurs and the worst perverts. It's just a fact of life, and you can't see what's happening here because you're desperate to believe in the lie that you're all friends, but you're in a den of snakes. Okay, so let's go through your video that's aimed at me.
Hi. Now the authority of Jesus.
And I'll just say off the bat, okay, I don't dislike you. I think you're a smart guy, but you've been given certain ideas which has you going round in circles, and your potential is not being realised because you're stuck. You're stuck in the circle. You're stuck with these spiritual liars who talk all this stuff about Jesus, but they've supplanted him with a whore. Okay, the birthing into innocence, which is something that he talks about, and it's something that he stole from the real teachings. Just like the Kabbalists and the Gnostics, they've always done it. Now the birthing into innocence is where Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, none will find the kingdom of heaven unless they be reborn." And it is about innocence. But there's two ways that this can be done. There's being born into innocence through faith, or there's being born into the womb of Isis. Okay, and that is a feminine aspect. The goddess that he talks about, it's just the whore of Babylon. It's mystery Babylon. That's all it is. All these symbols and all this gnosis, this knowledge that you profess, it's worthless. But it's a counterfeit religion that you're given that makes you think that you're a Christian, and all it does is load you with perversions. And I think you're a strong-minded person, and you're not a pervert by any means, but you are within the presence of perversion. And if you was to read more of the Bible, that would be made clear to you. But as it is, you're listening to this guy who stands between you and the real thing. And he bastardizes the real thing. And because he's the proxy between you, you get a distorted image of the real thing because he's feeding you it and you're believing what he's telling you. So let's actually go through the video. I've been 10 minutes already and I haven't started the video, but let's go through the video.
Let's just go there. Why not? It's all there is. There's no authority in ego. There's no authority in argument.
Okay, so authority. The ego, as you call it, the ignorant mind, it's stuck going around in circles and believing in nonsense, thinking that it's wise. And most of that is because it copies what it sees, it repeats. When it gets stuck into the world, all it can do is copy. Now, part of faith is submitting yourself to a higher thing, but the Gnostic perversion is where you try to elevate yourself. You know, you say all this stuff about Jesus and all the teachings are so wonderful and this and that, but you don't actually live by them. You kind of steal them and appropriate them for yourselves, and you make yourself into the figure, which is the perfect one. But it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. The gnosis is the delusion whereby you raise yourself up, and that's where you're loaded with sins, where all of a sudden you start looking at sinful things in different ways, and you start saying, well, perhaps we should make concessions because, oh, look at the wonderful symbolism in that, and you know what, that person doing that sinful thing, they're just living in their lower self, and they can't be judged for it because they're not knowing their true self. Well, here's the thing, and we're going to get to it.
Listen, you have nothing to say until you discover.
You say you know nothing. Well, that should lead you to the revelation that you need to submit yourself to an authority. You're correct to say you have no authority, but the ego mind will profess knowledge and try to raise itself up, and yet you will swear it is the spirit. But I'm telling you now, it's the spirit of whoredoms, who has no master.
Yourself. And that's really the humble talking point here. You know, I say I don't know anything and I don't, and I'm pointing to my ego when I say that, because the ego can't figure anything out. Ever. Ever.
So why do you continue to attempt? You know, if you're new to a skill or something, do you say to the boss, well boss, give me the textbook and I'll go away and I'll just come back a master, because in myself I know that I can do it, and I don't need you. You might be the boss around here, you might be the teacher, but you know what? I don't need you. I can do it myself.
And the problem is we think that's us, as usual. So, again, I always want to point to something, because
this pointing, you say to absolve yourself of making any kind of decision on anything.
Jesus is in the world and he permeates everything, yet
actually it says Jesus is of the world but not in the world, or in in the world but not of it. You shouldn't look for him in the world.
the ego spends its entire existence ignoring it and trying to talk about something else, when the Christ itself is the point of the exercise. It's the point of the...
What is the Christ itself? I'd be interested in hearing somebody explain what that is. Because I wonder if it's just a fairy tale that you will tell each other to kind of like reassure yourselves that there'll be a goal at the end. Just keep going. You'll become your Christed self eventually. Although don't ever declare it, because then we'll have to shoot you down.
The exercise. A man over there, or a man in the distant past, is not gonna save you.
This is where you have no faith. Okay? You have no faith. You will throw everything to the wind. You have no solid foundation, because the foundation that was built, you now say, is irrelevant. Don't worry about it. The last 2,000 years, don't worry about it. We've got it all in the palm of our hand today, is what you say.
It's not going to bring you salvation. It's not going to... He's inside you. You can look at it that way. And you can seek the guidance, but you're not going to get...
From where? Where does this guidance come from? If you say on the one hand that you don't know yourself and that you have ego, then where else is this guidance coming from? Because I would propose that this inner guidance is only your stupid self convincing you of something else.
Get it online or in a state of accusation or argument in a non-authoritative way. You're just not doing anything.
So, should liars not be exposed? Does it not say in the Bible that everything will be revealed and that nothing will be hidden? It sounds to me like this appeal to what's the word I'm looking for? Appeal to compromise. Don't ever say anything about anyone, because that would be an argument and then you would be in your ego. But that sounds to me a lot like, let's never figure anything out. And yet that's what you accuse me of doing. If I can show clearly that this is a liar, and I'm telling you now, the lies are insurmountable. At this point, there is nothing but the liar, and yet you're believing in the liar. Why should I not say anything about it? Does it upset you? Is that perhaps the only reason why? And it does upset you, because from the very day that I began to expose him, you all turned very bitter. And yes, you are lumped in with him because you are his students, he is your master, and yet out of the other side of your mouth you deny that. But it's true. And yet his mastery is of the spirit of whoredom. This is why none of you really can make a decision on anything, and it's always about max validation, and you come to entirely reflect him, because you are him. You are him. You know, it's none of you lose your individuality when it comes to Mac. He strips you of it and he turns you into him. No different to no different to this. And this is Mac, okay? And if you don't toe the line, he's going to beat you over the head with this bat. And he's going to say, I'm beating down your ego. In other words, I'm beating down your identity. Your soul. Who you are as a person, the way you learn. All of your good and all of your evil, which is you. You try to separate them, but they are all you. And then Matt comes along and says, toe the line or I'm going to beat you to death.
May I come in? So how you liking it here? doing right by Dr. Smarty Pants. And Frankie and Tanya, nothing but good things to say about you.
And I'm going to skip a little bit because I'm worried that this will now be taken down.
You just have to answer me one question, and it's a big one. Who are...
I'm Negan. I'm utterly, completely, stone cold Negan. I was Negan before I even met you. I just needed to meet you properly to know. I'm Negan.
Good, because for a minute there I thought I was going to have to crack you right over the skull with this bat.
You know, you're contributing to the shitty egoic rind that covers the world. That's all you're doing. To spend time pointing at another man and pointing out error. I mean, there's nothing more.
Are you not doing that right now? And yet are you doing it with righteous judgment?
Gossipy and cheesy and pipsqueaky than that as a pastime. We should be illustrating the nature of the Christ inside us all and working towards that. Right?
But what does that mean?
I mean, there's ways you can find Christ externally, but the reason they're there is because they're symbols to remind you that Christ resides in you.
But what will your symbols do for you? Okay? You discard the Bible, and I mean really it's an insult to the last 2,000 years, isn't it? Is it not an insult to everyone that came before you? And your ancestors and all of it? Is it not an insult? And yet you'll gladly pick up the Nag Hammadi texts, which were written by Gnostics. You know, none of this is like an illusion or a secret. It can all be proven easily. You'll gladly pick that up and tout that as the words of Christ. Yet the Bible, which was, you know, the apostles who were taught directly by Jesus Christ. The Bible's compounded on what they were directly taught by him, and yet that you throw away, and you say, no, homogeneous symbols will save us. Well, that's because you've been born into the womb of Isis, and you're the widow's son. You know, the barren one, the lady of earthly wisdom who is barren. How will symbols feed the poor? How will symbols lead to kindness and grace? How? Have you forgotten?
And I'm speaking on authority, okay? I'm not speaking from...
Oh, really? Well, 2 minutes ago, that was an egoic thing. And only Mac is allowed authority, because you all go to him seeking validation. And yet he shows you repeatedly that he's one of the worst. That he's allowed all of the authority. And yet you're not allowed any of it. Well, but you are at this particular moment when you're addressing me. Because I've been relegated to below the mystery school. Been kicked out and shamed.
From my ego that doesn't know anything. Okay, that line anyway. You know, the eyes are the window to the soul. So that's how you know. Because the soul is the Christ. Okay? The soul is the Christ. Of you. The denial that it exists. And the unwillingness to sit in silence and discover its nature is the world's problem. And it's your problem.
But how will this help you? I'm not gonna just keep repeating myself, but you know, I've already said, how will this help you? You can discover yourself. Okay, you can submit to Christ and try to live as is taught there, and call yourself a Christian and live by it, and not all of this middle ground, lukewarm, bit of this, bit of that, not really saying or doing anything, kind of always in an argument, yet claiming to never be in one. And yet you have no solid foundation. You have nothing that you can really say, this is me, because you will just repeat that you don't know who you are. Do you not see the logical inconsistency? It's a circular trap. It's a trap. It's like a carrot on a stick. This carrot, it's your true self. You must find your true self. You must find your true self. And then they put you on a treadmill and just have you running around for all the rest of your life, while some other guy cleans up on everyone's ignorance.
More than likely, because it's my problem. I know that. I'm working on it, though, and that's the difference. And I know, and I can smell the aroma of wrong, stupid shit.
Was that not ego right there? Is it not?
Aroma of wrong, stupid shit.
It's all the silly voices that Mac does. And yes, I've done it myself. I do it when I'm deriding people. But that this comes from bitterness. It's that Goyim thing, where you raise yourself up and you say everyone that's not finding their self and looking at irrelevant symbols is a Goyim, and is not worthy of my time. Where does the kindness come from that? How will that feed the soul of the world? How?
Yeah, I can smell that. It's pretty simple, because I come at it with humility and an understanding of what I am. So there's a quietness, and a quietness to my understanding.
I think that you just repeat what gurus tell you. All these Eastern gurus. I know you like to look at them. Whatever, that's fine. But don't be a hypocrite about it. Don't claim to know things and then claim to know nothing. And then claim to have ego, but then claim to be a higher person. You're just reflecting Mac. He just flip-flops all over the place. Even within the space of a few minutes, he'll contradict himself. But he just expects you to never say anything about it. And of course, if you do ever say anything about it, he's going to crack you straight over the head with his bat. His loving, kind bat, of course.
No, he's the Alpha and the Omega. Right? You're born, and you're known as I to yourself. You're not Dick or Jane yet. You're I. Okay? And then when you go, at the end of your period of duality, you go back to I. So while we're in the flesh, we're confused.
I would say, even as an experiment, because you're not going to be able to just do it. Okay, it has to be a revelation. It has to be a realization. It was for me. The more I learned about the Whore of Babylon, but I would say as an experiment, okay, try and forget about this duality thing, because that's what's confusing you. And I'll put it this way: when you're a child, okay, and Mac will say this, when you're a child, you have the innocence that just knows what to do. Now, do you think that child is caught up in notions of lower and higher selves? Or does the child just do? You talk about duality, but you cause the duality within yourself. You create it because you believe in it. Before you became enamored with masters and gurus, I bet that you had so much of an easier time knowing wrong from right, but you just didn't understand all of their esoteric nonsense. So Realise that there is none of this splitting up to do. And as I said to you before, you are always you, all of the good and all of the bad.
The veil of, what is it called? The veil of, there's some term that they use. The veil of confusion or the veil of obscurity, I don't know. Some lonely stroller. These are pretty good. The Javalia coffee shots.
I've never really been a coffee man personally, but I like a cup of tea.
Not advertising, by the way. I just happen to like them. Because I drink a lot of water during the day now, and I don't like to get bogged down with a mega coffee blob. So I have a little coffee before work, and then now at about noon, and then a little bit at the end of the day. Just a little. I would say get into the alphabet, bury your face into the, as an example. That was like one of the best examples in the external of where Christ resides, because he's in everything. But you can find him in how the alphabet is constructed.
Okay, yeah, it's fun to look at that kind of stuff, but it's no use to you to claim that it's anything to do with Christ's teachings, because it isn't really. It gives you a roadmap of the world and how things are constructed and how history played out, and the many works that have been done in the name of gnosis or science, which by the way is just the same word. Science and gnosis, they mean the same thing.
You can find him because it goes right to the tarot, because the tarot is based on the alphabet. It's actually based on the Hebrew alphabet. I know it gets into the Kabbalah, but what we're looking for here is symbols. Okay, symbols to resonate with. That's it. Just symbols to resonate with, and you can find them in the Bible. You can find them all over the place. Doesn't matter where you find them. Tarot's a book. Tarot's actually a bunch of keys. And they're keys to something, you know. Jesus is at the door. Huh.
Just as a few passages on it. Why does this generation seek for a sign? Truly I say to you, no sign will be given to this generation. This generation is a wicked generation. It seeks for a sign, yet no sign will be given to it but the sign of Jonah. So Jesus said to him, unless you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe. And this belief is in the spirit of doing good. It's not. There's no enterprise in these symbols, except for works. For indeed Jews ask for signs and Greeks search for wisdom.
I mean, everything is so hopelessly interlocked that you really can't miss it. But because we've got blind guides leading other people who
That's true.
imagine themselves to have something to say.
That's true.
I don't even know. I'm not going to quantify. It's just egos that don't know anything.
Who qualified you to make that decision? You say all this about not judging, and yet it's like everyone is beneath you who doesn't appeal to these symbols and tarot and all this. Just simple, faithful Christians who believe in the Bible and want to help their community and all that. You would scorn them because you would like equate them to pawns or peons or lackeys or sycophants. That's all that you will see them as, and you will miss the spirit.
With no authority. They have no authority. They have no authority, and it's accusations.
Well, this took a whole 35 minutes, but it's not really just for Miles Chill. It's for everyone on Mac's channel and anyone else that calls themselves a Gnostic, or you're just fooling yourselves. You really are fooling yourselves, and you're trapped in bitterness, and you're all babblers. tell you the truth. And you'll never get anything from Jane Smith. She's like, you know, I read all her comments. She just sort of throws shit at the wall and hopes that it sticks, and she just really does it to seek validation from Mac. But she'd be better off just ignoring Mac completely and just reading the Bible. I guarantee if you all spent just a week not looking at signs and symbols, forgetting about duality, forgetting about Mac, and just reading that, and you'll come away and you'll think, wow, you know, I have wasted a lot of my time.